Hi pals, it's me, Artie, they them pronouns only, and my video this week is talking about the two trans women characters in both Squid Games and Alice in Borderland. Because they're both kind of slay, and I just wanted to talk about them. I thought it was interesting that both of these dystopian Asian dramas I'd watched recently and really enjoyed also included a trans woman as like one of the main cast of characters. Considering the genre and the fact that they didn't actually cast trans women in the roles are the only thing that they actually have in common. So yeah, I don't know, I just wanted to yap about a couple of shows I really liked and some characters I enjoyed. I wanted to talk about, you know, how they were written and then also the actors chosen for the roles and how they played those roles. Here's my usual disclaimer. Take everything that I say in this video with a pinch of salt, because whilst I am trans, I am not a trans woman, and whilst I have thoughts on these characters, this representation, which you're going to hear about in this video, I am definitely not the authority on what is and what is not okay for casting trans characters, trans women characters, or writing them as well. Of course, I watched Squid Games first. I missed out on the season 1 really when it was first out and everyone was watching it. I don't even remember when that was, like a few years ago, because I think around that time is when I cancelled my Netflix subscription. And then when I finally got access to another Netflix account, it just wasn't in there. I checked multiple times and the only thing that ever came up was the Squid Games reality TV show version, which is concerning. They've made it a reality TV show. So when season 2 came out early this year, I binged it in a weekend. Obviously. If you don't know, this is the plot of Squid Games. So Squid Games is a South Korean dystopian survival thriller action television series. That is a mouthful. Got to double check pronunciations. Created, written and directed by Wang Dong-hyuk for Netflix. The series revolves around a secret contest where 456, me being too dyslexic to read numbers out loud, players, all of whom are in deep financial hardship, risk their lives to play a series of deadly children's games for the chance to win approximately £31.5 million. Season 2 is where they introduce the trans character. Her name is Hyun-ju. I knew before watching that she was not played by a trans actor. Obviously there was quite a lot of discussion about that online when season 2 aired, and I knew that she was being played by a cis man. When it comes to the characters specifically, I think she's really interesting and well portrayed. The reason she is there is to pay for transition, and the other characters are baffled that transitioning could cost so much money, where other people in the room are in debt for all sorts of, a lot of them awful reasons. Initially, she is a bit of a spectacle to some of the other characters. The old lady, who I can't remember who that is either, what her name is, but the old lady often makes comments or asks invasive questions without realising it's rude. I think it is relatively accurate across cultures that old people are just like that. Honestly, they're just kind of like that. It often seems like the older you get, the more you lose your filter, but expect others to keep theirs intact. And as a quote from one of the articles that I read, the son starts to lecture the mother, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Look mum, men turn into women all the time. You wouldn't believe the surgeries they can do." The mum is in disbelief, all the while the trans woman kind of keeps to herself. You know, don't get me wrong, I love this sweet old lady character as well. I think she is really sweet and kind, especially to the trans character Hyun-ju. We see Hyun-ju become close with this little old lady and a small group within the Squid Games. which includes her son and this other young woman as well. Her and this young woman become very close friends. I'd almost say that there could be romantic tension. I don't know. There could have been. Hyun-ju has a background within the army, which is ick. Not gonna lie, ick. But, you know, I believe it is also compulsory in South Korea to go and do army service for a short period of time after high school or university. I can't remember which it was.
If you are legally classified as male.
Thanks, Rotten Mango podcast, for teaching me many things about different Asian cultures. That's where I got that tidbit from. This isn't particularly surprising that she has any experience within the army anyway, but also I believe she actually rose through the ranks, so I can't really assume she was only there for the short mandatory period of time.
Like, I assume Special Forces isn't the group that you end up in your first year of enlistment, you know, so, but I choose to not know anything about the army, basically.
However, across the world, including in the West, a lot of trans people do go into things like the army because they have done, it depends on what moment in time we're in, but like a lot of people who are in the army get really good healthcare, and that also can include medical transition related healthcare, because yeah, there was definitely a point in time when there was more of a trans acceptance push when it came to the army, navy, you know, those. I don't know anything else about those things. I truly don't. They were doing anything to get people to sign up and be part of the army. So yeah, I can roll my eyes. All I like about the army IRL, it obviously becomes a benefit later in the season in Squid Games. I think it's also interesting how they chose to star and follow a trans character in season 2, and how these characters we do follow are on the good side and they want to go home. They don't want people to get hurt or killed. She is also very protective of her friends that she's made in there, but also near the end of the season where the usual main character starts an uprising, she's one of the first people to volunteer and teaches people how to use guns, and of course is a slay shot. And none of the people who were bloodthirsty enough to stay in the games have volunteered to fight for their freedom. Obviously, typical really. You know, they play dirty and attack the others in the middle of the night, but they're not willing to put their arse on the line to actually rebel and get out of there. Bitches. The other show that I watched, which is like, it is very similar. I would say that if you liked Squid Games, you would also probably like Alice in Borderland. It is also a dystopian Asian drama. However, this one was created and filmed in Japan, and I also binged this in a weekend. All 3 seasons. No, 2 seasons. How many seasons are there? 2 seasons? Yeah, binged both seasons in a weekend on my own, and the plot is like this. Alice in Borderland is a Japanese science fiction thriller drama television series based... There's so many words. It's based on the manga of the same name by Haro Aso. Haro Aso. The series is directed by Shinzuki Sato, and it stars Kento Yamazaki and Tao Tsuchiya as allies trapped in an empty parallel version of Tokyo, forced to compete as players in a dangerous, sadistic games. And this came out in 2020 initially. Actually, it might have been 21. Either way, it was mid-peak COVID times. The type and difficulty of each game is represented by playing cards based on French suits? Why does it say sweets? Based on French suits, and the games are used to extend their visas, which I think is a really interesting, just creative choice. And if your visa expires, that results in the player's execution by lasers shot from the sky. Do we see the parallels? The trans character in this show isn't there from the start either, but she is an early central character and becomes part of the main group that we follow. She is played by a cis woman who is also a Libra. Thank you, Sly. However, Queena, my love, you have a highly questionable hairstyle. You know, in my headcanon, she does not have dreadlocks in a ponytail. She just has a fun ponytail that's dyed with like fun colours. Maybe a plait or two in there, you know. But Queena is initially quite outspoken and confident. We meet her through the beach. I'm just Ken. So we always see her in swimwear. Usually a bikini top and bottoms, which then becomes jeans when they leave the beach, and platform flip-flops, which must be so inconvenient to wear in a dystopian world like this. I think she eventually trades them in for like actual shoes, but like she's in them for ages. We learn her backstory, which is when we find out that she is trans, as there are no typical tells of this character being trans in the TV show, especially as she is being played by a cis woman. We see she has a very strict and mean father who would humiliate her in their martial arts training, where he was her teacher, but also just generally a teacher. He caught her trying on makeup and threw her out when she was like still a teenager. Her mother was always kind but doesn't do anything. Her mother then becomes sick years later, where Queena comes to visit her in hospital post-transition, and her mother tells her that she is beautiful and accepts her right away. She then spends her time caring for her mother full-time. Similarly to the Squid Games character, she is a badass in combat. They both have that sort of like, obviously different, but a background in combat. She overcomes the trauma from her father and puts her life on the line to fight one of these like really violent and really creepy antagonist slash villain characters at the beach during the witch hunt task. She literally fights this freaky guy who has a fucking sword in a bikini and bare feet when the floor is covered in glass. Like shattered glass, and she won. And also the building's on fire. The building is on fire. She then is known as one of the few people to specialise in physical tasks. She ends up having a bit of a homoerotic friendship with the forensic scientist lady, who, chef's kiss. I love her. Love her. Season 3, bring them both back and let me see them kiss. Give us a kiss, please. And I am so sad that no one is ever gay in these things. However, I will sort of delve into that a little bit more. She is kind, smart, compassionate, and is also just really funny and very selfless. When we discuss the casting and the performances though, obviously it would be ideal to cast a trans actor. I remember reading that Squid Games found it practically impossible to find a trans woman to cast who was also actually an out actor. And hey, again, another... I can't remember what I called this just now.
Disclaimer.
Either way, you know, I'm white, from Britain. I don't really know anything about Korea's track record or Japan's track record, really, or current standing with trans rights and issues. I just know loads of white trans people go to Korea in particular for facial feminization surgery because they are so fucking good at it, and they are very like subtle and natural about how they work on you, whereas a lot of Western options can be a bit heavy-handed, I have to agree. So genuinely, the judgment from me, especially in this video, is minimal. I do not know enough or have enough context and these are just my ponderings. My leaning preference in general, if you can't cast a trans actor, is what Alice in Borderland did, which is cast a cis person who is the gender of the trans character that you're going for. So Alice in Borderland cast a cis woman to play a trans woman. I understand a large part of the character from Squid Game's story is that she's there to pay for her medical transition costs. So in that regard, I get why maybe they made that choice. I don't necessarily agree or condone it, but I understand how they got there. Regardless of this fact as well, though, I personally do think that both of these actors did a really good job of playing trans women. I think mainly in the way that they didn't ham it up in their acting, and I also think costume and makeup did a really good job too. And like, hey, maybe also it's just a South Korean thing anyway, that it's more popular to have a more subtle, youthful makeup. So there was less risk of it looking more like drag instead of a trans woman. When it comes to the actor for the Squid Games, I don't think he hammed it up too much or over feminized things too much. His choices were small and subtle, and to be fair, I also watched it dubbed, so I don't know what he himself did with his voice, but I think the English voice actor did okay. It wasn't an overt change in voice and was more of a softening of their natural voice. This is also something that I talk about it in my last video about audiobooks, where I was recommending audiobooks. A lot of the books that I would really enjoy kind of suffer because of the men narrating, that when it comes to voicing female characters or women in the book, their voices just make it sound like a joke, like mocking things. And like, me and my friend talked about this stuff yesterday. She was saying that they tend to go for the archetype of like either kind of little young girl voice or old granny voice. There's not really anything outside of the two, and a lot of the times they kind of blend together as well. So I feel like the voice work for the dub was much more subtle and wasn't overcompensating for the fact that they aren't a trans person. Although, to be fair, I have actually looked into who the dubbed people are. So I did actually look up the English voice actors for the characters in both Squid Games and Alice in Borderland. And there's a reason why the voice actor for Hyun-ju is very good at being a trans person. And it's because they are a trans person. Hyun-ju is actually voiced by Mix Nikki Endres, they, she pronouns. I have actually seen them in, I think it was The Dropout, with Amanda Seyfried, that I briefly mentioned in that medical drama ranking video based on a real thing that happened. So yeah, a slay. Also, she was born on the 30th of September, so another Libra. Another Libra. So yeah, she identifies as a non-binary trans femme queer actor. So we did get some winning in for like the voice actors at least. However, everybody who voices anyone in Alice in Borderland are all white people and all cisgender. So the representation that was slightly winning is now slightly losing, and vice versa. So I feel like they've evened out the playing field a little bit there. And also, I didn't mention this in my original recordings, but a couple of things I also really like about Alice in Borderland in particular, I just thought it was really funny how Arisu, who is the main character, who's a guy, that is the Japanese pronunciation of Alice. And I just really love that. I don't know why, just really love that. And I did really like the hints here and there, and like the Easter eggs that refer back to Alice in Wonderland. There's like a few obvious ones, you know, and I just enjoy those. And there's a young woman who's the character, I can't remember her name, but she is disabled. Again, however, not played by an actual disabled person, RIP. However, she plays an amputee with one of those cool, like, springy leg prosthetics, and she is like a really good shot with her bow and arrow. However, she's a little bit odd. I don't really like her generally. But I just like the little additional representation, because I do feel like disability in general has been kind of missing when it comes to like physical disability and chronic illness. I suppose there's a little bit in reference to Seong Ji-hun, the main character. His mum has diabetes and dies. And then also player 001, Oh Il-nam, who is a very old man, basically, who has dementia, and I think he said he has cancer. I don't remember, but yeah, like, it's not a huge role in both of these shows, but it definitely could be. So I do kind of hope that they include more disability related subjects in like season 3 as well. But that was all. I just wanted to put that little like add-on in. Now I know. Yeah, I didn't think about that to really fully look into. I thought about it enough to like mention it, but forgot to actually look into it. It was a much kinder choice for the character of Hyun-ju. An article I read said that they did work with LGBTQ plus consultants for season 2 in Squid Games. So it's a bit like the original Astrid Murder in Paris, which I talked about. I've already talked about her. Talked about that one. But with trans people instead of autistic people. Wang stated that there are next to no openly trans actors in the industry in Korea. South Korea, because there's also next to no openly out gay actors either. I've made fumbles in the past where I've forgotten context or just didn't know I didn't know about the cultural context of certain things before discussing them in videos or just with people obviously as well, particularly when it is media made in other countries. So I generally like to err on the side of I don't know the context of this societally, so I won't overly criticise what they have done here. Much like how I feel about Astrid Murder in Paris, I think the show is well crafted, and the LGBTQ plus consultants definitely helped improve the overall quality of this representation. I think as well the show does well representing the challenges trans women face in Korea. At one point she tells another character that her mum cried all the time, her dad doesn't talk to her, and she lost her job and all of her friends when she came out. No wonder there are so few openly trans actors in Korea, if that's based off of the cultural context. It's not dissimilar here in the UK or in America, particularly now with the state of our politics. And then when it comes to Alice in Borderland, Quina is a fun conflicting of masculine and feminine traits as well. In appearance she is overtly femme and sexualized because, like, I would say when she's at the beach, the whole point of this at the beach is they're weird and like to control people a lot. So they make everybody wear swim clothes and basically nothing else, so that you can't hide weapons on you. So for the first while we only see her in like a kind of like a string bikini, and sometimes jeans when she leaves the beach for challenges, or when the beach burned down and everyone left. So after that she starts wearing more clothes. So there's a lot of skin, and she's perpetually in these huge heels that are, yeah, you know, big chunky flat platforms that are just very inconvenient for the world that they're in. Her personality is more boisterous until you get to know her character better. Her defense mechanism is being kind of bizarre. There's a moment where she's playing lookout for another character, where one of the creepy characters, one of the villains of that moment, walks past and gets suspicious of her, and after like a prolonged eye contact, she gives him a super over-the-top camp wink and he just leaves. I would say she's kind of comparable to Ino or Sakura from Naruto, for my Naruto stans out there, or, you know, Naruto past kids stans. Both of these characters are hyper femme, but are loud, annoying, bossy, but under it all they're kind and fragile. Like I said, I prefer cis women playing trans women if it's that, or cis men, because women don't have to wonder what it's like to believe you are a woman. They know what that's like. That is their life. They've grown up knowing they're a woman and knowing what that feels like. Nothing about her character or performance reads as trying to be trans, and it is purely in her backstory where we find out. Whilst we still have to wait and see Squid Games and actually Alice in Borderland, when I wrote my script it hadn't been announced yet either, but like we still have to wait and see if there's any further involvement of these characters. We have to wait and see for Squid Games of Hyun-ju's fate in the Squid Games, and then season 3 as well is coming from Alice in Borderland. Do we see a return of Queena? At least I guess with Alice in Borderland you can at least kind of stop at season 2 and rest peacefully knowing that Queena is not another tragic trans story, even when the odds were stacked against her. However, I guess we will have to wait and see for season 3 if she returns and what happens. I did find an article written by a trans woman as well who was pleased by the representation of both Hyun-ju and Queena. But I think it will very much be an opinion that depends on who you speak to. Most articles address the cultural impact and significance of the Squid Games casting, but I am also unsurprised that the publication them didn't even try to. I'm not gonna lie, like it sucks when you have like publications specific for a community you're in and they just don't even address cultural context for the media that's been made. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on these two characters in these two dystopian dramas. I really like both of these shows. I watch them both because I am trying to do a lot of research into dystopian and sci-fi TV shows and books and films, to try and help with my own writing. But it always amazes me how well crafted a lot of these, like especially as these are games and challenges they have to confront. It's like, yeah, I just find it impossible. Like I think it's so cool how they build this into their dystopian worlds, whilst also like, yeah, just having a selection of really interesting cast members really. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to say exactly. You can go and watch one of my past videos that was about trans men being cast as a love interest of singers in their music videos. Let me know what you think of that, and that will be it from me this week. Obviously don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share my videos, but I will see you next week. Bye.